Homage to fundamental teacher Buddha Shakyamuni. Homage to wisdom warrior Manjushri. Homage to all lineage benevolent masters. The Dharma, infinitely profound and subtle, is rarely encountered even in a million eons. Now we are able to hear, study, and follow it. May we fully realize Tathagata's true meaning in order to liberate all sentient beings from samsara, generate supreme bodhicitta. Now we continue studying the words of my perfect teacher. We are currently teaching the training in arousing bodhicitta. I forgot what we discussed yesterday. However, why there's a transition here, I also forgot. Yesterday, we already discussed that a person with bodhicitta in their mind stream is a true bodhisattva. Such bodhisattvas, wherever they dwell, whoever forms a connection with them will gain immeasurable merit. However, we have no idea where such bodhisattvas reside. The sutras and treatises also say that among butchers, prostitutes, and others, there are many bodhisattvas who use skillful means to benefit beings. I have previously translated biographies of great Indian masters, Legends of the Great Mahasiddhas by Taranatha of the Jonang school. In it are many people who appear extremely lowly and base on the surface, but in reality, whoever forms connections with them can plant seeds of liberation. Such bodhisattvas are countless and numerous. So from our ordinary perspective, we see some people with severe greed, anger, ignorance, and improper conduct, but in reality, they are emanations of bodhisattvas. Such phenomena are quite common, so it's very difficult to know whether other beings have bodhicitta in their mind streams. It's indeed very difficult for us ordinary people to know whether someone possesses bodhicitta just by looking at the surface. Therefore, the Buddha also said in the Samadhi Raja Sutra, "Except for me and those like me, no one can fathom others' minds." Buddha can measure others. Great bodhisattvas like Buddha also have the ability to know who is good and who is bad. They should clearly understand what is good and what is not. Apart from this, it's very difficult for ordinary beings to know. The discourse on the 10 stages also states, if one judges the inner by the outer and develops contempt, one destroys body and virtue and falls to lower realms at death. If one observes others' inner qualities by their outer appearance and develops contempt and slander, then this person will ultimately destroy their own virtue and after death will fall into the lower realms. Very frightening. So we are required, many sutras teach not to casually judge others. Also in the discourse on the 10 stages it says, Buddha said, only those equal to me can measure beings. If Buddha says this, who can judge people? That is to say, Buddha and those truly like Buddha can measure beings, but others absolutely cannot. They don't have this ability. If even Buddha says this, then who among us has the ability to truly judge and measure others? Who has this ability? It's quite difficult. Therefore, as wise people, we should try not to speak of others' faults. Some people during one meal speak of 7 or 8 people's faults. This one is wrong. No good. Oh, that one is wrong too. Wow, such and such. Everyone except themselves needs to be criticized. While they praise themselves, how I practice, what character I have, how much money I have, I am such and such. Praising themselves in every way, while apart from themselves, whether gurus, disciples, or other ordinary people, they constantly disparage. Actually, disparaging other beings will definitely have negative consequences, directly or indirectly. Moreover, if our own cultivation is poor, everything we see appears very improper. If one's practice is particularly good, the people one sees are also very good. This is constantly pure perception. Therefore, regarding any deity, guru, or spiritual friend who helps us generate bodhicitta in our mind stream, we should regard them as true Buddhas, because we don't know. Anyway, through this method, if a person helps you enter the path to enlightenment and generates bodhicitta, be immensely grateful to them. Also, through practicing a deity and generating bodhicitta in your mind stream, or any other guru, just like Atisha, when he heard the name of his guru Salingpa, among all gurus, the guru who teaches you bodhicitta has the greatest kindness among all spiritual friends. The one who leads you into the Mahayana path has tremendous kindness. When you practice a deity, if through the deity's blessings, genuine bodhicitta arises in your mind stream, then their kindness is truly great. So whatever they manifest, they are true Buddhas. For others, if we really have no way to discern, regard those who introduce you to Mahayana Buddhism as true Buddhas. This is also found in many sutras, so we should think this way. Regarding our own mind stream, if we think we have realized the meaning of reality or gained psychic powers, samadhi, visions of deities, etc., some people think they've realized emptiness or seen deities or gained some psychic powers through dreams and other experiences. Just now, on my desk, there were several people saying they might have attained realization with various signs, writing so much. Whether these people are genuine or false, you can judge yourself through this passage. No matter what superficial spiritual qualities appear, if through these your great compassion and bodhicitta never decline and continue to increase daily, then you can determine these spiritual signs are genuine qualities. You feel you've truly realized emptiness or had miraculous powers or seen deities or seen various things in dreams. Then in these few days since that time began, has the bodhicitta in your mind stream increased at all? If it has increased, it indicates this should be genuine. Mipam Rinpoche also said in Beacon of Certainty that the difference between proper practice and blind practice is easy to discern. It should be judged by the growth of faith and other qualities in one's mind stream, just like inferring the existence of fire from smoke. If all qualities in your mind stream filter out like Chinese tea, keeping all the dregs and letting all the essential qualities leak out, it shows that whatever deities you've seen are false, especially if you don't believe in cause and effect or acknowledge past and future lives. However many deities you've seen, they're actually not genuine. This is a very good method of judgment. Some of us often ask about what we dreamed yesterday or saw today. Some are completely boasting, we can say lying, claiming to see what they haven't seen. Some may genuinely have some seemingly real but dubious experiences, but whether these experiences are real or false, don't ask other gurus. Since that time, has your belief in cause and effect, faith in your guru or great compassion for beings increased daily? If so, you should determine it as genuine. If through these your compassion and bodhicitta gradually decline, then these superficial spiritual signs are undoubtedly all demonic obstacles or wrong paths. If since those appearances the compassion and bodhicitta in your mind stream gradually diminish, then even if you see deities daily, these are manifestations of demons. Demons indeed sometimes manifest in such ways. The sutra on arousing bodhicitta can defeat demons. This Mahayana sutra states, demons constantly watch for opportunities among those who practice virtue, wishing to create various difficulties and destroy their virtuous dharma. Demons constantly prepare obstacles for practitioners, seeking to harm them when opportunities arise. Moreover, they constantly want to create hardships for practitioners, especially those with good practice, causing them difficulties and trying to destroy their virtue. The Sutra of Great Compassion also teaches that Mara constantly creates conflicts with two types of people. Which two types of people? One type is those who teach Dharma with dedication. The other type is those who listen to Dharma with dedication. Especially when we receive profound teachings, Mara is particularly displeased. Therefore, he constantly seeks ways, and when he can't find other methods, Mara may often enter the mind of the listener, making them drowsy, generating distracting thoughts, developing wrong views about the teacher, etc., even creating obstacles between teacher and student, causing their relationship to break. When we studied condensed transcendent wisdom, we also introduced much content in this regard. Various conflicts arise between spiritual friends. Various contradictions are also created between teacher and disciples. This is all the transformation of Mara. Mara often destroys others' virtue through such methods, so it's very possible he manifests as deities, manifesting to make you abide in samadhi or see some truth through this, making you develop pride and gradually lose your virtuous mind. So if you see that after such experiences appear, your compassion and bodhicitta gradually diminish, then you don't need to ask others. Definitely such visions are improper and should be demonic possession. We should judge and test whether it's demonic phenomena from this perspective. Does Mara have more advanced methods like the machines that now test drivers? Are there more advanced ways to investigate? So far, nothing has been mentioned. We test through this method, particularly if genuine realization of reality arises in one's mind stream, then one will definitely have sincere faith and pure perception toward Guru and Three Jewels, and possess extraordinary loving-kindness and compassion for beings of the six realms, etc. Truly, in our mind stream, it's not difficult for many to discover whether you've realized emptiness. If you've realized emptiness and your realization gets higher and higher, your faith in Guru and Three Jewels becomes stronger and stronger toward beings of the six realms. Especially seeing pitiful beings, you absolutely cannot bear it. One who realizes emptiness absolutely won't see particularly pitiful beings and ignore them. This absolutely won't happen. As we discussed before, great compassion and emptiness are actually of one taste, one essence. As long as there's realization of emptiness, great compassion naturally arises. And through great compassion, realization of emptiness can also be generated. Just like when Peerless Dakpo Rinpoche asked Jetsu Milarepa, "When can I accept disciples?" Pachu Rinpoche also used this at least once or twice before. The master replied, "Once you directly perceive that your mind's essence is not like it is now." At that time, Dapo appeared as if he hadn't yet attained realization. He said, "At a certain point, you will recognize your own nature, not like you are now, free from all doubts. At that time, you'll develop extraordinary perception of this old father as a true Buddha, and will also definitely develop genuine compassion for beings. At that time, you can accept disciples." Later, many great masters also used this to measure themselves. Truly, at a certain point, towards your Guru, as if truly in this world, he is the only Buddha, developing such certainty. Moreover, recognition of your mind's original face is completely unlike before. What ego clinging and afflictions, these are all absent. Recognizing the mind's essence of awareness emptiness inseparable is very clear. Just beyond words, but very vivid. Moreover, through such realization, compassion for beings of the six realms becomes very intense. In your mind stream, there is no mind of the eight worldly concerns. At that time, if you accept disciples, then the disciples' mind streams will definitely be meaningful and benefited. If your mind stream doesn't even possess basic renunciation and bodhicitta for the transcendent, and you accept thousands of so-called disciples, then it's merely everyone gathering together. Such gatherings are quite numerous in the lower realms too. Hell has very many. Hungry ghosts have very many too. But as a guru, there's no real benefit for their mind streams. In history, many great masters of the past had extraordinary faith in their root guru. Actually, this can be inferred from external signs as well. I remember once when Guru Rinpoche was teaching us, there was a young lama. I don't know what he's become now. At that time, many of our old Dharma friends probably remember. Once when we were performing Buddha Shakyamuni's story, the one who played the young prince, actually, that child was quite old, but looked extremely small. Moreover, he had particularly strong memorization ability. Once Guru Rinpoche said, "I heard your memorization ability is very strong. After I pass away, will you often think of me? When you think of me, will tears fill your eyes? If it's truly like this, then at that time you can teach Dharma to others." At that time I was nearby, though he was speaking to this child because the child was extremely small. At that time we performed Buddha Shakyamuni saying, "In heaven and earth I alone am honored." That child was very small at the time. At that time I wondered whether the Guru was referring to those of us around. At that time we had a group also sitting below the Guru's Dharma throne. I thought at that time whether this might be a teaching for us. I still wrote it down. Each of us, perhaps like Dakpo Rinpoche when before Milarepa, his extremely profound teaching can also be said to position one's life for the future, or position accepting disciples. This is explained particularly clearly here. Those of us here are also like this. Some people, after coming to the academy, after 4 months immediately take ordination. After shaving their head, can I first go down to accept disciples? Today shave head, tomorrow go prepare to accept disciples, as if accepting disciples requires no hair. Without hair, there's no problem having such thoughts. But do they actually possess these qualities? If they do possess them, I think according to Milarepa's teaching, they should be able to go down the mountain immediately or the next day. They can go to various cities to accept many disciples. This is also possible. Therefore, we must take compassion and bodhicitta as the foundation, practicing with hearing, contemplating, and meditating inseparably combined. Therefore, we should take compassion and bodhicitta as the foundation, have pure precepts, compassion and bodhicitta, then hearing, contemplating, and meditating. It's best not to separate hearing, contemplating, and meditating. Some only emphasize hearing and contemplation, but not meditation. Some only emphasize meditation, but not hearing and contemplation. Individual preferences may differ, but for most people, hearing, contemplating, and meditating are all needed. Just as Vasubandhu explained in the Treasury of Abhidharma, if first one doesn't eliminate conceptual elaborations through hearing and contemplation, one won't understand true meditation. Just like Sakyapantita also said, meditation without learning is like climbing rocks with severed arms. Meditation without learning through hearing Dharma is like a person without arms directly climbing high. Directly climbing high. Mountain peaks or rocks, this is completely impossible. If you want to climb mountains like some foreign movies, if you want to climb mountains, especially cliffs, you definitely use your hands to grab above and slowly go up. If you don't have both arms, that will be very difficult. So without hearing and contemplation, many people nowadays want to meditate right from the start, without having heard any basics or foundations. In such cases, if truly not combined with hearing and contemplation, it's very difficult. Hearing, contemplation, and meditation must be combined. The so-called elimination of conceptual elaborations through hearing doesn't mean knowing all knowable phenomena of vast and boundless varieties like the back of one's hand. Moreover, in the brief lifetime of this degenerate age, it's impossible to know all knowable phenomena, especially what we truly need to study and contemplate for our liberation through wisdom investigation or Guru's requirements. Whichever Dharma is very important for your liberation, take this as the main study and contemplation. The primary Dharma for study and contemplation. Otherwise, all these countless sutras and treatises, vast as the ocean if you want to study them all in your brief lifetime, there will be certain difficulties. Therefore, we must achieve clarity on the beginning, middle, and end of all our practice methods, correct and unmistaken, crystal clear, eliminating conceptual elaborations through contemplation. For what we need, a Dharma that will definitely sever the root of samsara. Such a Dharma, first we must understand through study and contemplation how the preliminaries are, how the main practice is cultivated, how the concluding practices are done, making all issues crystal clear, eliminating all conceptual elaborations, then practicing single-pointedly will definitely generate true certainty. I remember in the Mahayana Wisdom Seal Sutra there's a verse that says, all beings in the 10 directions, having heard, contemplated, and properly practiced, subdue all afflictive heat, like drinking nectar with a cool and clear mind. I remember this scriptural citation, which I very much like. There was once an Englishman who said, I really like your Vimalakirti Sutra. I really like this scriptural citation about hearing, contemplation, and practice, because here, the entire sequence of practice is already explained. Beings with connection in the 10 directions should first receive the Dharma they need, then contemplate, and after that, begin practicing. In this way, you will definitely subdue the afflictive heat in your mind stream. Just like drinking nectar, you'll attain coolness and inconceivable benefits. Like drinking water, only the drinker knows if it's cold or warm. You will definitely obtain it. The mental state before study and contemplation is completely different from the mental state after study, contemplation, and practice. Now, many of us only develop true faith in Buddhism after study and contemplation. This kind of faith is not easily shaken. It's not emotional faith. Some emotional faith is like this. Oh, today seeing a guru or seeing a Buddha statue being extremely moved. When prostrating, hitting the forehead bang 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 on the floor countless times until bleeding, but after 2 days treating them differently, beginning to despise with another attitude. This is called a temporary impulsive mind. True rational wisdom and rational faith are different. Through long-term study, contemplation, and practice, finally truly generating irreversible, genuine faith in one's mind stream. This is very important. So, we often say not to separate study, contemplation, and practice. The reason is here too. Formerly, when Atisha was in Nyetang, 3 geshes, Xiang Shunpa, Kyong Tenpa, and Yang Tsang Tenpa requested Atisha to teach the correct philosophical schools and logic, asking Atisha to teach logic. Atisha was the most capable Pandita of both Western and Eastern India. He definitely understood logic, but he didn't particularly emphasize it, seeming to feel that Tibetan people might not have the disposition for logic. At that time, he didn't emphasize it. The master said, whether non-Buddhist or Buddhist traditions, there are countless schools, but they are all just strings of conceptual thoughts. Countless such conceptual thoughts are not of great necessity. Logic, on one hand, is indeed still very important for many scholars, but regardless of which school, many schools just focus on debate, just on words and phrases with many conceptual thoughts. Some geshes debate continuously from childhood until they are white-haired and still debating. That day, when we held a Buddhist conference, we also mentioned, in a certain county, geshes from many monasteries gathered together, everyone debating, holding logic debate sessions for many days. But outside these monasteries, countless beings were being slaughtered in slaughterhouses, yet those people never went there to stop these killings. Some young scholars also raised such sharp questions. Indeed, just floating on the surface of words, on logic, it's like this. We can't say all who study logic are like this. We can't say that either. Indeed, through studying logic, eliminating conceptual thoughts, developing faith in Buddha Shakyamuni and Buddhism, such cases also exist. But each guru has different emphasis in what they teach. So when receiving teachings, before any guru, mainly, understanding their intention is very important. Atisha wasn't necessarily particularly opposed to logic. But seeing the situation at hand, he said, life passes in an instant. Now is the time to synthesize the essential meaning. He said, studying logic isn't necessarily very important. Now, in the degenerate age, it's time to practice pith instructions. Emphasize actual practice. Don't listen to commentary on bad cognition. Right? So he wouldn't teach it. Then Geshe Shangshungpa said, then how do we synthesize the essential meaning? The master instructed them, speaking roughly. 4 teachings below. First, develop compassion and bodhicitta for all beings, equal to space. This is one pith instruction. The Dharma we practice, this is one. For their sake, diligently accumulate the two accumulations. One is developing bodhicitta. The second is accumulating merit and purifying obscurations. Dedicate all virtue thus generated to all beings. May all sentient beings together attain perfect enlightenment. This is the third. The virtue we generate through developing bodhicitta and accumulating merit. Dedicate to all beings. After dedicating to all beings, oneself and all beings together perfectly attain Buddhahood. This is a synthesized pith instruction. And understand that all phenomena are empty by nature. Their appearance like dreams and illusions. This is the pith instruction. If we went to pay homage to Atisha, because Atisha was an important figure at that time, sometimes if we went to see him, perhaps we couldn't see him. If we could see him, Atisha had just come from India. Now, when some of us go to India, we quickly learn some Indian languages and bring them back. Otherwise, Atisha's language abilities, speaking Chinese, he might not understand. Speaking Tibetan, he also might not. So, linguistic communication would have certain difficulties. Blessings, Guru. He could give blessings. This is possible. Apart from this, Atisha's pith instructions might not be available. Here, 4 points of pith instructions are explained. Other extensive learning and scholarship would have certain difficulties in our brief life. It's best we practice what's in the words of my perfect teacher now. Bodhicitta is taught. Accumulating merit is taught. Dedication to beings is taught. Then emptiness Dharma is taught. Ultimately, all phenomena are empty. Conventionally, like dreams and illusions, this is the view of the Madhyamaka Prasangika school. We must maintain this view, then all dhammas are already complete. Indeed, in this degenerate age, completing all dhammas has certain difficulties. I'm thinking, while eliminating conceptual elaborations, everyone studies some middle way and logic. This is still necessary, especially for young people. But for most people, properly practicing the preliminaries and aspiring to be reborn in the Pure Land, usually reciting and practicing some virtuous dhammas, then this lifetime should be meaningful, especially when we all listen to Dhamma together on days when there's Dhamma listening. I feel that day is very meaningful. The recitations before and after, the virtue in between, all dedicated to beings. I have this feeling. On days without class, though it seems more relaxed, but it seems like today didn't have real meaning. With class, though there's pressure, I always feel today was still very fulfilling. Anyway, teaching one class in a day, reciting the King of Aspiration prayers together with everyone for a day. Oh, today is very meaningful, living meaningfully. I personally often have this feeling too. We also practice with such pith instructions. From this, we can see that if we don't know how to synthesize the essential meaning of practice, then superficially understanding, knowing, and comprehending, however much, in the end, won't have particularly great effect. The effect isn't very great. So, synthesizing the essence is still very important for us. In the past, when Atisha first came to the Tibetan areas, at that time, the great translator Rinchen Zangpo invited the master to go to his monastery. Everyone knows that Rinchen Zangpo is also called Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo. In the Tibetan areas, there are 2 periods, the later propagation and earlier propagation periods. The later propagation period, from Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo or Rinchen Zangpo until now, all the translations done by translators are called later translations. Translations before Lotsawa Rinchen Zangpo and before Ronzon Pandita are called earlier translations. At that time, after Langdharma's persecution of Buddhism, they tried repeatedly to invite Atisha to the Tibetan areas. When Atisha was invited to the Tibetan areas, translator Rinchen Zangpo was already over 80 years old. Originally, there was a 24-year age difference between them, with Atisha being younger. At that time, when Atisha met Rinchen Zangpo, his hair was completely white. He had translated very much and had certain prestige in the Tibetan areas at that time. When Atisha first met him, he was also particularly delighted. Moreover, he spoke some Indian languages very fluently. For Atisha, coming to the Tibetan areas was particularly unfamiliar. Many people's languages were different, not like now. Meeting translator Rinchen Zangpo felt particularly good. At that time, the two of them also conversed in the monastery. Then Atisha asked the translator about such things as various sequential teachings of Sutra and Tantra. Do you understand this? Do you understand that? Asking many questions. How well do you understand everything? Inquiring one by one like this. As a result, the translator seemed to know everything, answering all questions fluently. At this time, the master was very delighted, praising and saying how rare this is. The Tibetan areas have such a great scholar. I don't even need to come. It's not that your Tibetan areas lack scholars, they said. Now, many great masters of the earlier translations have already passed away. There are also no other great masters. All those who requested him said this. Only you, Atisha, come to our Tibetan areas to propagate the Dharma. Otherwise, now in our Tibetan areas, there are no people who understand Buddhism. How pitiful this! And that, many rulers and ministers at that time cried before Atisha. Finally, he had to come. But after coming to the Tibetan areas, he felt there was such an amazing person who was proficient in both Sutra and Tantra. Then there's no need for me to come, he said this at the time. Then Atisha immediately asked further, these dharmas that you understand, if you practice on one cushion, how should you practice all these dharmas? At that time, translator Rinchen Zangpo said, then we should practice according to what each school teaches. He didn't know how to synthesize pith instructions. He himself had a 3-story hall in the monastery. In the morning, he would begin practicing Hinayana deities in the Hinayana hall. At noon, he would practice some Mahayana Sutra deities. In the afternoon, with the Vajrayana hall on top, he would go there to practice. Later, Atisha also observed all his practice situations and said very sadly, "Ah, translator, you've got it wrong. It seems I still need to come to the Tibetan areas, because on major issues, if you practice this and that separately, just like many of our people now, today reciting this for a while, practicing a bit, oh, this deity might be unhappy, let me recite Manjushri. I'll recite Manjushri 100 times, oh, Avalokiteshvara is also waiting for me, I still need to recite Avalokiteshvara. Oh, Vajrasattva might get angry, let me still practice Vajrasattva. Oh, and there is Buddha Shakyamuni too. Continuously like this, each deity they don't view as one essence. Just like when we practice Guru Yoga, all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions are inseparable from the Guru. In this way, when you practice one deity, other deities merge into one essence. And Sutra Dharma and Tantra Dharma are ultimately all one essence. But if we don't understand this, actually in Han regions, many people also have this problem. Nowadays, there are many. We often encounter some so-called great masters in monasteries, and some intellectuals who consider themselves very proficient in Buddhism in their practice process, practicing this and that. Moreover, considering these deities as truly inherently existent, just like I said before. Oh, Manjushri might be happy I offered him so much today. Oh, Avalokiteshvara should be happy, but today I might have offended a certain deity because today I didn't have time to make offerings to him. In this way, viewing deities as ordinary beings, there's this fault. And the true principles of each tradition and school don't merge into one essence or practice in the form of pith instructions. So at that time, he said, I still need to come here. Atisha thought it was still necessary to come here. Then the translator asked, then how should one practice? If I don't practice layer by layer, then how to practice? Won't it become confused? Later, the master instructed, one should synthesize all dharmas into one essential point to practice, either through Guru Yoga or first develop Bodhicitta for everything, then use one liturgy. The deity of this liturgy, all dharmas in one dharma, renunciation, bodhicitta, and non-dual wisdom can all be practiced together. They are not completely separate. This is very crucial. Even if we practice just Guru Yoga, actually, the essence of many deities can be practiced. In the past, in many particularly excellent pith instructions, there's no need to separately recite the subjugation ritual. For example, if you recite your Guru or maintain faith in your Guru continuously, many Kadampa teachings all say this. At this time, all 84,000 demons, each of these demons has its own life-controlling mantra. The vital points of all these mantras, in your visualization of the Guru just now, or in your faith in the Guru, you've already captured them. They can't be shaken. So for a person with unwavering faith in the Guru, even millions of demons cannot harm them. These are all pith instructions. If you don't understand pith instructions, indeed practice becomes quite difficult. Practicing any Dharma becomes very difficult. Therefore here, it also teaches that one should practice with synthesized pith instructions. We can see that we must understand the pith instructions transmitted by the Guru and practice by summarizing the key points of practice. Even if we clearly recognize this point, but if we don't actually practice, it's also useless. If we don't practice, it's useless. Jetson Milarepa also said, personally, just like a hungry person, merely hearing about food is not sufficient. One must eat it. Similarly, merely understanding Buddhism has no meaning. One must actually practice. One must actually practice. Through actual practice, one can attain real benefits. Otherwise, indeed, it won't have any effect. In the Mungam Sutra, there's also a very good scriptural citation. I have taught you immeasurable dharmas, but if you don't practice these dharmas, it's like a person holding excellent medicine, but unable to cure their own illness. Buddha Shakyamuni said, I have already taught you immeasurable dharma methods, but if you don't practice these dharmas, it's impossible to attain liberation. It's equivalent to a person holding particularly excellent medicine in their hand, but this medicine should be taken by oneself. If you don't use it, then your body's illness cannot be treated. It's impossible to cure. So merely listening to Dharma is still not enough. We must practice. Merely contemplating a bit is still not enough. We must definitely practice in our mind stream. Actually, the feeling of a person through practice and the feeling of not practicing are completely different. For example, simply speaking of developing bodhicitta, theoretically, anyone can say this, but those who truly practice, their mind stream becomes completely gentle. They truly help beings. If you haven't practiced at all and it's just lip service, you speak very beautifully, but actually you may not practice. Even in the process of practice, encountering a little obstacle, you'll retreat. So practice is still very important. The purpose of our practice is to counteract afflictions and ego clinging in our mind stream. Jetson Milarepa once said, worldly people often say whether one's diet is good or not can be known by observing their complexion. There is a worldly saying, whether you eat well or not can be known by looking at your complexion and vitality. Some have a ruddy, glowing complexion. They definitely eat particularly well, fat, and some you can tell at a glance, wow, they definitely don't eat well, thin, and seeming like they haven't eaten for a long time. Their eyes can barely open when listening to Dharma. They have no energy at all. Their complexion isn't good either. Such people you can tell just by looking. We can all see, wow, this person definitely eats particularly well. Are they secretly eating meat? Our academy has now established a vegetarian society. Vegetarianism must be emphasized. Among the lamas, a while ago in the academy, probably now very few eat meat among the lamas. On the nuns' side, we haven't heard of any. Their society is quite large, probably over 20 people going door to door asking how you actually are. One person answered, your behavior is very moving and admirable, but actually it's a very frightening movement. So I have to say I'm vegetarian, otherwise it's embarrassing. Because over 20 people come to ask whether you really are. Actually, it's very good. Indeed, in Tibetan area's history, there were many monastics who ate meat. This has a very bad influence on Tibetan Buddhism, we should say. We also often emphasize after coming to Tibetan areas, don't learn to eat meat and then return. This is not good. We also hope many great masters from Tibetan areas, when they go to Han regions to propagate Buddhism, should promote the vegetarian spirit. We always emphasize this. Now many people are increasingly. A few days ago I told them, since the vegetarian society is to be established, November 25th each year is International Vegetarian Day. At that time, to have them formally established would be good in all respects. In the future, we hope such movements will become increasingly vigorous. On our side, at Victoria Smara, subduing land, this problem doesn't exist. We have long had everyone's cooperation in all respects. Very good. You can also tell from people's complexions. It's truly like this. Similarly, whether one understands Buddhism and practices well can be known by seeing if they can counteract ego clinging and afflictions. A person with heavy ego clinging and afflictions definitely doesn't practice well. Just like looking at complexion. Looking at complexion tells you if they eat well. Looking at whether this person practices well. Looking at whether this person's ego clinging is heavy, whether their afflictions are heavy. If afflictions are particularly heavy, then definitely practice is poor. No matter how much they pretend to say they converse with deities like people every day, it's definitely not deities. Geshe Potowa also once asked Venerable Dromtonpa what is the boundary between Dharma and non-Dharma. Geshe Dromtonpa told him, counteracting afflictions is Dharma, not treating afflictions is non-Dharma. This is very simple. What can counteract is Buddhism. What cannot counteract is non-Dharma. Not following the world is Dharma. Conforming to the world is non-Dharma. If we're like worldly people every day with greed, anger, ignorance, or subduing enemies, engaging in economics and such things, worldly people engage in these all day. Conforming to them is definitely non-Dharma. Not conforming to these, practicing earnestly oneself. This is called true Dharma. Conforming to sutras and treatises is Dharma. Not conforming to sutras and treatises is non-Dharma. Results being virtuous is true Dharma. Results being negative is non-Dharma. If all actions conform to the Tripitaka and 12 divisions of scriptures, this is true Dharma. If it doesn't conform to scriptural teachings, no matter how well spoken, it's actually non-Dharma. Also, if the result of actions is good and benefits beings, this is virtuous Dharma. If there's no benefit for beings or oneself, this is non-Dharma. Venerable Dromtonpa answered this way. Master Chegom also said this. Sincere belief that cause and effect are infallible is the right view of inferior practitioners. Realizing the unity of appearance emptiness and awareness emptiness of inner and outer phenomena is the view of middling practitioners. Realizing that seen, seer, and realizing wisdom are inseparable is the view of superior practitioners. From the aspect of view, there are superior, middling, and inferior capacities. Generally speaking, that cause and effect are infallible and past and future lives truly exist. It's just a Hinayana view of inferior practitioners. Now, many people seem to lack this view. Very frightening. Among us Buddhists, some people still have doubts. All phenomena being appearance, emptiness, non-dual. Such realization is for middling practitioners. Having realized appearance, emptiness, non-dual, without attachment, with seer and seen all merged into one essence, this is called a view of superior practitioners. Abiding in one-pointed concentration is the right meditation of inferior practitioners. Abiding in the four kinds of unity concentration is the right meditation of middling practitioners. Having no meditator, object of meditation, or experience, abiding in non-conceptuality. This is the right meditation of superior practitioners. Meditation is also divided into three. Abiding one-pointedly, not clinging to anything, remaining for a long time, not eating all day, sitting in Vajra posture continuously, even if the house beside collapses, paying no attention, Such people are inferior practitioners right meditation. Just sitting like this isn't necessarily very good. Abiding in the realm of the four unities of clarity, emptiness, and awareness emptiness non-dual, this is for middling meditators. The practice of truly superior practitioners has no meditator, object of meditation, and experience, nothing at all. Finally, truly, as explained in Finding Rest in Meditation, entering the primordial Dharmadhatu luminosity of mind nature is called superior practitioners' right meditation. Conduct is also divided into three types. Observing cause and effect, like protecting one's eyes, is for inferior practitioners. Observing cause and effect is particularly important, like in Hinayana, even when walking, not stepping on insects, being extremely careful. Now, some who study Vinaya, who study Hinayana, including some current Grey Masters, should act this way in behavior, being extremely careful about cause and effect. This is actually inferior practitioners' conduct, the realm where all phenomena are like dreams and illusions. Everything is like dreams and illusions, with no substantial clinging at all. This is middling practitioners' conduct. Having no object of action at all is superior practitioners' conduct. In Dzogchen it's also taught, transcending all agent and object of action, ego clinging, afflictions, and conceptual thoughts gradually decreasing is the true warm signs of superior, middling, and inferior practitioners. Finally, this should mainly be applied here. In summary, if our ego clinging, afflictions, and conceptual thoughts become fewer and fewer, this is the true practice. Warm signs of superior, middling, and the inferior practitioners. Let's see if we have any signs of accomplishment. Now many people ask, wow, is there light outside? Starting to take countless cameras. Click, click, click. These warm signs can exist or not exist. Actually, the sun has light rays. Having light is fine. Not having light is also fine. Some people attach great importance to light. Some people attach great importance to rainbows. Some people to hearing sounds outside, etc. But I feel these aren't necessarily the most important in practice. What's most important? Each of us should observe ourselves whether our practice has accomplishment signs. If there are accomplishment signs, originally a few years ago, a few months ago, you indeed had very severe greed, anger, and ignorance. Now through practice, you've gradually reduced afflictions and ego clinging. Originally, when others spoke about you slightly, you'd explode with rage. Particularly bad temper now. When people speak about you, it's like slandering a stone, feeling indifferent. Wow. Then you feel, I still have some accomplishment signs, though these accomplishment signs might not necessarily be photographable. But actually you also know, oh, I now truly have some accomplishment signs. Others are the same way. Whether others have accomplishment signs, you can see whether others' ego clinging has decreased, whether others' afflictions have lightened. This is for superior, middling, and inferior. Superior people are also like this. Middling people are also like this. Inferior people are also like this. Are the common accomplishment, warmth, signs for all. For us, we still need to observe constantly at all times. Peerless Dagpo Rinpoche in Precious Supreme Path also says the same. Our Guru Rinpoche also often teaches this. In many of his teachings, he also says this. The most fundamental thing is reducing ego clinging and afflictions. When ego clinging and afflictions decrease, no matter what people say outside, actually, this is truly having some accomplishment. In our process of cultivating bodhicitta, some people truly had extremely heavy selfish minds before, but later, through Mahayana Buddhism's blessings and the power of their own long-term habituation, after such conditions are complete, at a certain time, whether it's toward one's own body, reputation, or wealth, they feel indifferent. Whether others speak of me or hit me, this is nothing. But the most crucial thing is propagating Buddhism and benefiting beings. At this time, it shows your accomplishment signs. Others may not necessarily see it, but actually, there's indeed some progress. This point, many of you here should definitely remember. On the long path of your practice, therefore, when we listen to Dharma, we must understand how to synthesize the essential meaning. So when we listen to Dharma, we must understand some of the most crucial points I've also mentioned before. For example, the way of the Bodhisattva, the words of my perfect teacher, the precious treasury of pith, instructions, individual treatises. Can you at least turn a few pages daily to look at them? Because these contain many pith instructions. Of course, if you have one or two dharmas that you completely take as your lifelong practice, treating them like practicing a deity, this is also very good. So when we practice, we should have a few synthesized, most precious, most important dharmas that we can never be separated from throughout life. Must practice wherever we go. It's not that when I'm at Larunga, I recite a few of Larunga's liturgies. When I go to another monastery, I'll recite this place's liturgies, having no fixed standard at all. Such people won't have any accomplishment, changing all the time. In the end, there won't be true success. So, among all dharmas, we ourselves should extract individual practices. Indeed, personally, what I recited 20 years ago, I still continue reciting now. And there may be some additions in the future, but before death it won't decrease. This is already decided. The sutras I recited 20 years ago, I'm still reciting now. The books I read 20 years ago, I'm still reading. My main deity 20 years ago is still the same now. It's not that I'm showing off how I am or what, but I hope that since you are listening to Dharma before me, some aspects don't necessarily have to be done exactly this way, but they are worth learning from and contemplating. Otherwise, some of our people nowadays change Dharma text every few days, change to a new taste every few days. In this way, changing back and forth in our brief lifetime, how many opportunities do we have? So, Venerable Longchenpa also said this. Knowledge is like stars in space. Learning has no end. Knowledge to be known is like the countless stars in space. If you want to learn everything completely, it's boundless. In this brief lifetime, there's simply no way. Now, seeking the essential meaning of Dhammakaya, we must reach the unchanging solid ground. In this brief lifetime, we must definitely seek essential meaning, like that of Dzogchen. Through such practice, we must definitely reach the fruition of Buddha Samantabhadra, accomplishing in this very life the unchanging ultimate true ground of liberation. When contemplating, one should eliminate all conceptual elaborations. Just as the Indian Padampa Sangye said, when seeking Guru's instructions, one should be like a hawk searching for food. When listening to Dharma, one should be like wild beasts hearing sounds. When practicing, one should be like a mute person tasting flavors. When contemplating, like northerners shearing sheep. When attaining fruition, like clouds parting and sun emerging. This analogy Patrul Rinpoche has also used several times. Each usage is slightly different. The first is when seeking Guru's pith instructions, searching everywhere like a hawk, slightly smaller than an eagle, going everywhere because it wants to catch small birds like sparrows. Until it succeeds, it flies around everywhere without stopping at all. It won't stop at all, just using its wings in between. When we were herding cattle, we'd say it's divining. It goes like this, until discovering it can catch a small bird here, flying over there, arriving here. It starts divining again, then flies over there. Apart from this, it doesn't stop at all. So when we seek Guru's teachings, we should first search everywhere. Wherever there are Guru's teachings, going here and there. After finding a Guru, then we can't just run around casually like wild beasts, hearing the sound of a lute. We are not like this. Now, when listening to Dharma, we run around everywhere. First, going directly without examination to one place when listening to Dharma. While in class, breaking the transmission, running here, running there. Perhaps this analogy is misunderstood by many people now. When practicing, like a mute person eating candy, they feel it completely, understand completely. So truly attaining such results, oneself completely. If you practice emptiness, you should taste emptiness. Practicing renunciation, renunciation should also be cultivated. When contemplating, like northerners shearing sheep, not missing a single word. When attaining fruition, oneself completely. Like the sun emerging from clouds, no one can obstruct it. Needing to be like this, we must achieve hearing, contemplation, and practice inseparably. Peerless Dakpo Rinpoche also said, hearing, contemplation, and practice without confusion, advancing together is the unmistaken essential point. Our hearing, contemplation, and practice shouldn't be separated. We should always both listen to Dharma and practice. Actually, this way I feel throughout life. Practice can be done every day. Listening to Dharma can also be done a little every day. Otherwise, some people say, I've already heard one treatise, now I'm going to practice. Practicing for 2 or 3 days. Later, neither practicing nor listening, completely becoming worldly people. There are too many such people. In my mind, I'd have to count countless people. People with accomplishments, people who practice well, they are also countless. This should be analyzed from a fair, objective perspective. What we must make clear is that the result of hearing, contemplation, and practice must achieve the purpose of compassion and bodhicitta, increasingly growing while ego clinging and afflictions gradually weaken. The purpose of our practice is exactly this. This instruction on developing bodhicitta is the essence of all true Dharma, the essential meaning of all noble paths. It's a Dharma that if present is definitely sufficient, if absent is impossible. Truly, bodhicitta is the essential nectar of all Buddha Shakyamuni's 84,000 Dharma methods, the essential meaning of all Mahayana and Hinayana noble paths. With bodhicitta, everything is complete. Without bodhicitta, everything is lacking. Even if such a state arises in your mind stream for just one moment, its merit is also inconceivable. Just as the sutra spoken by the Buddha on the courageous king of all dharmas also teaches. Having developed bodhicitta, the accumulated merit wanting to describe even its smallest part is immeasurable. You want to describe even a small part of the merit, it's boundless, impossible to measure. If bodhicitta had form, the great ocean and space would not contain it. There's also this scriptural citation. Developing bodhicitta is like this. We shouldn't limit ourselves to seemingly true but falsely understood levels, but practice with sincere dedication. This point is quite important. We must definitely cultivate bodhicitta well. This is the essence of everything. Finally, Patrul Rinpoche has a summary for this instruction. Though I've developed supreme mind, yet it hasn't arisen. Though I've studied the 6 paramitas, yet I have selfish desires. May I and foolish beings like me cultivate supreme bodhicitta. Please grant blessings. Though I've already developed supreme bodhicitta, but because of my own afflictions, karmic obscurations, plus obstacles from all sides, indeed genuine bodhicitta hasn't arisen in my mind stream. Though I've already studied generosity and other 6 paramitas, but because I practice particularly poorly, selfish mind still exists. Patrul Rinpoche very humbly says, I and ignorant beings like me in this world are also everywhere very pitiful. So may they definitely cultivate particularly supreme bodhicitta. To cultivate such bodhicitta definitely requires Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions, as well as the blessings and protection of lineage gurus, dakinis, and dharma protectors. Only through their constant mindful care can it be cultivated very perfectly. So also through requesting blessings from noble beings, reminding each of us to recognize our own faults, while definitely developing supreme and unsurpassed bodhicitta, the root of all paths. The instruction on developing the supreme Mahayana bodhicitta is complete. This is now complete. 这本从人中专修。
만드는 거를 만나서도 만드는 거를 만나서도 만드는 거를 만나서도